Welcome to Fight News Now Extra. I'm John Pollock. We're coming off of UFC 179 this past weekend, and we're going to discuss the card in depth with Robin Black. In the news, Jose Aldo retains his featherweight gold down in Brazil. Phil Davis does what Phil Davis does best, and Anderson Silva, yes, Anderson Silva, signs a new 15-fight UFC deal. The UFC's 145-pound king Jose Aldo retained his featherweight strap in Brazil on Saturday night with a hard-fought unanimous decision victory over gritty challenger and Team Alpha Male representative Chad Mendes. Scores for the fight were 49-46 across the board, despite the fight itself being hotly contested over the course of 5 rounds. The win marks the 18th consecutive triumph for Aldo, who has not tasted defeat since 2005. In the co-feature of UFC 179, Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis imposed his superior wrestling game to grind out a unanimous decision over former UFC title challenger Glover Teixeira. Much to the dismay of the Brazilian crowd, Davis continuously worked for the takedowns round after round, eventually getting Teixeira down to the mat where he was able to control him. After 3 rounds, all 3 judges scored the bout in favor of Davis, who oddly enough used his time on the microphone during the post-fight to call out Anderson Silva. And speaking of Anderson Silva, the former middleweight champion has reportedly signed a new contract with the UFC that will see the Spider remain with the organization for another 15 fights. Speaking to the Brazilian media, the 39-year-old stated that last Thursday he met with company president Dana White as well as Lorenzo Fertitta, and that they tore up his pre-existing 7-fight contract and signed a new one for an additional 15 fights. The contract will reportedly start at UFC 183 on January the 31st against Nick Diaz. And we are joined by Robin Black. John Ramdeen is nursing a broken jaw, which hit the floor watching 5 rounds of Jose Aldo and Chad Mendes on Saturday night. Fight of the year contender, I think is safe to say, and maybe could be the best fight of 2014.
Yeah, so far it's definitely up there, man. And what just a great fight. Just everything that you want, all the drama and all the action. The kind of fight that anybody can get. You point somebody towards a TV and you say, watch this thing, and you're engaged pretty quick. Probably the defining fight of Aldo's career. He's been a brilliant champion, a brilliant fighter. You know, a lot of our conversation going in, at least from my side, was, is he on the decline? Has his body taken so much abuse that he's on the decline? Nope.
No, we saw a completely different Jose Aldo than we've seen in his last couple of performances. And, you know, I can't get into Jose Aldo's head, but I would venture to guess he looked at Chad Mendes as a real serious threat. He was clearly motivated for this, and that was evidenced in the 5th round because Jose Aldo, he was not tired in the 5th. He was the fresher of the 2 by the time that fight ended, which was not an outcome I anticipated if the fight went the distance.
Yeah, you're right. He took him seriously. He looked at that and he said, I got to bring every single gun I got. I got the big guns and the small guns and a knife and everything. He was in crazy shape. He was highly motivated. And, you know, we also talked about how Bang Ludwig's approach with TJ worked. And, you know, you saw a lot of that same mobility, a lot of the same, you know, ingredients sprinkled onto Chad Mendes. And Aldo beat him just by being really tough. Like, some of that game plan, some of that strategy worked. And Aldo just refused to have it. It was amazing.
I will argue that Chad Mendes will beat any featherweight at this point. Cub Swanson, Conor McGregor, anyone that's not named Jose Aldo. I think he is that number 2 featherweight that unfortunately is in a position now. He's lost twice to the reigning champion. I don't know if it necessarily is that far a path back to a title fight. I don't think people would be upset to hear a 3rd fight, whereas you compare it to Junior Dos Santos, and I don't think people are necessarily jonesing for another fight with Cain Velasquez at this point. They have had 3 at this point. But Chad Mendes is kind of in that awkward spot that Uriah Faber has been in many times in the past, where you've lost to the champion, and now it's kind of in that weird purgatory.
That spot, that sort of position was pioneered by Rich Franklin. You know, he went and he fought Anderson Silva. He was the 2nd best guy in the world at the time, and Silva beat him badly. Fought his way back, fought him again and lost. That's just what Chad Mendes went through. But you're right, man. Would you want to see that, a 3rd one of those? Yeah. What if Mendes goes and knocks out a bunch more guys? I mean, there are moments in time, unlike other sports, there can only be one guy. There can only be one greatest. And in other sports, it's like, well, you know, your team has a brilliant center and so does mine. We get to play each other a lot. In fighting, you don't get to do that. But this guy, Chad Mendes, if he really is as great as he looks like, and, you know, he's never been taken down, he has everything. He can fight his way back, and I'd want to see it again.
Now, we did a very big breakdown of this fight on 5 rounds, so be sure to check that out. But certainly a lot of people are upset about the way the first round ended with Jose Aldo landing those 2 blows after the first round. What was your take on it? I believe that a point should have been taken away in the moment. Certainly you can look back. And I wonder if a point is taken away, I mean, does that change the pattern at all? Does that change what they're telling each of their fighters in the corner? All kind of hearsay at this point, but what was your reaction?
It's a weird one. One of our producer Bob and I were chatting about this. You know, you walk out, if you got hit by a car today, if you just took a little longer brushing your teeth, you don't get hit by a car. You know, everything leads to something. And that punch, well, he went on, they had a beautiful fight, it was amazing. But is it different if he doesn't hit him with it? Maybe it is.
There's no way of knowing.
Yeah, there's no way of knowing. But what do you do about it? This is a fight. Guys are going to stretch the boundaries a little bit. Did Aldo decide? It didn't look like he was being cheap. And people in that arena said it was so loud he couldn't hear anything. In the end, somehow we have a way of forgiving everything. A fence grab here and an eye poke there when a fight is as beautiful as that one was.
Now, I think that it is about time that we sit down and we have some actual penalties put on paper. Like, you know, first eye poke, a warning. Second one, there is no debate. Yeah. You lose a point. Fence grab, automatic deduction. And a shot after the buzzer, accidental, on purpose, that is the letter of the law now, is a point deduction, because I think a lot of fighters, they don't know what they can get away with. We've seen point deductions where there's no warnings. We have seen guys get away with multiple infractions during a fight. And if I'm a fighter going in there and I don't have the highest ethical moral code, I know I've got 2 eye pokes, I've got a low blow, I've got 2 fence grabs, and I can probably get in a shot after the first round, and I'm not going to lose any points for this and gain tons of advantage.
Yeah, and people accuse John Jones of getting an eye poke in every fight, and whether or not it's planned, who knows. But it's not the worst strategy in the world. I mean, you got to win a fight. If you win it, you make more money, your career goes a certain direction, you take care of your family. Again, everything is affected. So if you got to do something to win that fight, you're already in there punching and kicking a guy in the head. What's a little fence grab? That's the mentality when you're within a fight. So you're right. If you create some kind of structure, we'll all have to follow it.
Yes or no, Phil Davis issued the challenge to Anderson Silva. Do you see that fight happening in 2015?
I don't, but I'd like to for Phil, but I don't. I see Anderson Silva fighting Nick Diaz and then maybe George St. Pierre.
All right, that is all for us. For Robin Black, I am John Pollock, and more Fight News Now Extra is coming your way. Check it all out.